Assalamu alaikum, inshallah you're well guys. So some of you will be waiting for your final exam results, and inshallah if it's good news, you may have already made the decision that you're going to leave your chosen service line, you're going to leave practice and move into industry. But is this the best time to move? Inshallah in today's video I wanted to provide some insight and talk a bit about when is the best time to move from practice. Firstly, it's important to note that the most popular time to leave practice is at the newly qualified level. So when you're an audit senior or an assistant manager, depending on the firm that you're working at. And in my experience, there's three main reasons why people leave. The first two reasons are because you're fed up of your chosen service line, or you found out that you hate finance. You fancy a complete career switch. And the third reason is where people respect that they've spent 3 to 5 years in their service line. It's a great start to their career and they want to go and experience something new. When I was leaving BDO many years ago now, I'd say I was in the latter category for the most part. And when you move into industry, you're likely to move at the finance analyst / accountant, senior or assistant manager levels. It is possible to secure a manager level role, but this is likely to be a junior manager role where you have limited line management responsibilities. But again, it is possible. Although the newly qualified level is the most popular time to move, if career progression is important to you, it's at the top of your agenda, I think you should wait. Spend a few more years in practice, and there's a few reasons why. Firstly, you may have to pay back a cost if you leave at the newly qualified level, because many firms have now got a clause in their training contracts that if you leave within a certain period after qualifying, normally it's up to 2 years, you have to pay back a portion of your training costs. Now, your new employer may be happy to pay those costs on your behalf when you join them, but chances are they probably won't. And if you secure a 5k pay rise, you may actually find yourself being slightly worse off because of these exit fees that you have to pay back. However, if you fancy a fresh start and you're committed to leaving, those exit fees may not matter to you. It's just something to bear in mind. Secondly, in practice, you can have teams of around 50 to 60 people in an area within a service line. Whereas in industry, even some large companies don't even have 50 to 60 employees across the whole of finance. What that can mean is that there are blockers in place, which once you're settled in the role as a senior, you spent 1 to 2 years with that company, that prevents you from progressing onto the manager level or above. It could be that your manager isn't moving on from their role, so they're blocking your promotion to the next level, or your team just isn't big enough to justify your promotion. However, these blockers don't really exist in practice because people are constantly leaving. So there's always opportunities to be promoted to the manager or even the senior manager level. If most people in your intake leave and you're one of the few ones remaining at your firm, chances are you will be promoted to that manager level. But I just want to be clear, guys, people don't just get promoted because there's no one else there. These people thoroughly deserve their promotion. But the point is that there's much higher turnover in practice than in industry, which will inevitably lead to more opportunities in practice. There are also more frequent promotion rounds in practice. The large firms tend to promote twice a year. So if you don't get it this time around, you can push yourself and secure that promotion within 6 months' time. But it doesn't quite work like that in industry. To give you a practical example, if you stay in practice, you can expect to get promoted to that senior manager level around 4 to 5 years after qualifying, and then you could do a sideways move into industry. Or you can move into industry straight away after qualifying, and then you find that there's blockers in place. And on top of that, you've got to prove yourself from scratch because this is a new company. They're not going to know what you're like. So then you may find out that it takes much longer than 5 years to get to that senior manager level. Thirdly, you build stronger relationships with clients after you've qualified. If you ask me, Fazan, who are the managers or the seniors on the TGX Europe audit? I'm going to know their names. I'm going to know a bit about them. But if you ask me, who are the third year trainees? I'm going to be clueless. I don't even know their names. And the reason why is because trainees are constantly changing on audit jobs and they perform the more junior work. So they'll have less exposure to people like myself. But the seniors and managers normally spend a few years on the project, which means more exposure to me. They do more of the complex work which the client is interested in, and they lead all the presentations, which means they get great exposure all the way up to senior management. Now imagine you're a director in finance and you need to hire a manager for your team. You know the external auditors well, the seniors and managers do a great job. There's someone you particularly like, so you're going to approach them for an informal conversation and see if they're going to be interested. It does happen. I've seen people secure fairly senior level jobs through the exposure they've got whilst working on a project. Now imagine you're a manager in practice and you have 10 key clients throughout the year. You're going to have that same impression on dozens of senior leaders. On the other hand, if you move into industry at the newly qualified level, your relationship and network building will now be limited to your current company only. You won't have the same opportunities as your peers who remained in practice, which may then limit your progression opportunities going forward. Balancing everything out, if possible, I'd advise people to stay in an organization until they get to the manager or the senior manager level. Firstly, you've shown that you can stay at an organization long enough to get promoted to the next stage. And secondly, more so at the senior manager level, you can secure very senior roles within industry. So I've seen senior managers from practice secure head of audit roles where you're the first hire for a company in internal audit and you're responsible for setting up the internal audit function for that organization. So you will lead the whole process. But at the same time, mental health is very important. And I know some people absolutely hate their experiences working in the Big Four. So there's no point of staying in a job which you know you're not going to enjoy, which you don't like already. So inshallah for you guys, I'd say it's still better to move at the newly qualified level. Don't sacrifice your mental health for career progression. If you feel you can stay in practice for a few more years and career progression is very important to you, only then do I advise you to, inshallah, maybe wait a few years before you make that first move into industry. Inshallah, I'll leave it there, guys. As always, any questions or queries, please feel free to comment below or message me on Instagram.